Okay, guys, so once we've created our document after going through the new document setup, Illustrator does give us the ability to go in and edit the document setup once we've created our document, and that is up here in the document setup, in the control panel, the document setup button. We can click on that and bring up a lot of the same features and more as well that we may use once we're in the document to control the size of our artboards, etc. One of the things that was referenced in the previous video was the idea of bleed. Here we also have the option to adjust the bleed, and in the assignment on page 88 you are asked to adjust the bleed of your document setup, and in this case they want us to change the bleed to being 0.125 inches. Now I just did that by selecting the bleed on the top, and I moved the little arrow up here to the left. And I could continue doing that, and it moves it up in standard increments. I could go in and actually type into this field. Let's just do 0.125 and hit enter. Let me click on that. I X'd out of that. Going back to the document setup box, I see that I've set my bleed at 0.125. But as you notice in here, what happens is as I change this bleed setting, the bleed for the top, the bottom, and the left, and the right all change at the same time. This little button over here is your settings lock option, which ultimately says that if I change this value in the top field, all the other values are going to change the same way and in the same increments. When I unclick it, you see that it looks like the lock is broken. That means that if I change this setting here, the other ones will remain the same. So I'm going to go back and turn the lock back on and go back to 125, and that is our bleed setting. Now, in order for you to know what a bleed is, I thought I'd just try to do a little narrative. You know how when you look at a printed page, for example, maybe if you look at the cover of your textbook and you see that the ink goes all the way to the edge of the page. So we are looking at this image of this illustrated woman who's looking over her shoulder, and we see that the printed cover of the textbook actually shows the colored inks going all the way to the edge of the page. In the printing industry, how that is achieved is they actually print the artwork on paper that is larger than the image itself. And the bleed is the amount of ink that exceeds what is to be the expected boundary of the image, so that when paper is fed through the press, there can be a little give and take if, for example, the paper slips one way or another. The bleed is put in place to give that little bit of extra ink to ensure that if there is a slight variation in how the paper gets fed, that there will be ink in place that will be undetectable to the viewers of the document. Okay, so I hope that kind of gives you a context for what bleed is. Those of you who don't work with press at this time probably won't need to know it, but it does give you an appreciation for how we get these beautiful full color images printed all the way to the edge of the paper. It's actually, there's a little bit of paper that's sacrificed in the process. And I shed a tear because I'm kind of a tree hugger.